Hey, 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 hey. Um, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am not going to be on here long. I see if I have this on the thing. So I'm not going to be on here long. I just wanted to share a few things with you that I find that work with teens in the classroom. And parents often ask me like questions about what can I do. And so the title of this is How Discipline Can Benefit Your Child. And I'm sure many of you, when you heard the word discipline, you thought about punishment. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, and I don't know why we often think of discipline always in the negative, because there are two types. There's the discipline where you know, which is really like punishment, where you discipline your child because they did something wrong. But there's also the discipline as it relates to self-control. So we're going to talk about how that kind of discipline can benefit your child. So in case you're joining me and you don't know a lot about me or anything about me, let me just tell you briefly. My name is Jackie Bruton, and for the past 21 years, I have been talking to middle and high school students about a lot of things. I'm a motivational speaker, but the thing that I talk about probably 80% of the time is sex. Love, sex, and relationships. So I go into schools, into health classes, and I do assemblies for schools. And I supplement what they're getting from their normal teachers in their health classes. If you're joining, can you put in the comments where you're joining from, the city, the state, the country? If you're watching this on the replay, hit replay and then put the city, state. I just always like to know the reach of the content that I put out. So one of the things that, like I said, parents often will ask is, what can I do? And I think, well, I don't just think this. Like, most of our failures that we have in our culture are a result of lack of self-control and discipline. I mean, think about it. Alcoholism, all the addictions, sex addiction, pornography addiction, drug addiction, food addictions, all the result of lack of discipline and self-control. And so there is a book that I read years ago, and I loved it so much that I actually bought a copy. I think I bought 5 copies for my nieces and nephews who had small children. Because here's the deal. Oftentimes, parents will come to me when their kids are teenagers, and they want me to talk to them about the fact that they don't have any discipline and self-control. And I'm like, that's something that you should have been teaching them at a very early age. And I like to share the story about a father who wanted me to talk to his 14-year-old daughter because she was making a lot of poor choices. And so when I talked to her and I asked her, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where would you put your life as far as like how you feel about your life is going? And she said a 5, I think. What would it take to get it higher than that? Everything that she mentioned that would take for her to be happier or happy with her life, they were all things that her parents couldn't control. And so I went to her dad and I said, I'm going to tell you what I think is the issue. I said, she's spoiled. And I said, her entire life up until now, because they had moved to a new city because of a job transfer that wasn't within their control. I said, everything up until this point that she has wanted, you gave it to her. And now you're in a position where you can't give her what she wants, which is to move back to the old town. There were other things that she said she wanted that she couldn't get. And I said, so she doesn't know how to deal with the fact that for the first time in her life, like, she's being told no. And that's a tragedy that a 14-year-old has gotten everything that they wanted, everything that she wanted all her life. And now the minute that she can't, which is why it is so important to help your children understand the benefit of self-control, and discipline. This book is called No: Why Kids of All Ages Need to Hear It and Ways That Parents Can Say It. And so what the author, it's Dr. David Walsh, and he also wrote Why Do They Act That Way about the teen brain development. But one of the things that he talks about is, he says in the book, he says, this is an excerpt from the book. The truth is, we don't always get what we want. Ironically, people who learn that lesson seem to be the most fulfilled. So we're not doing our kids any favors when we teach them that the world will always serve up whatever they want on a silver platter. But that's what most of us do day in and day out when we forget the important lessons of no. So he uses a bunch of examples of where he says, toddler is in the grocery store aisle, and he gets to the checkout and he wants the candy and he's screaming and yelling. And so the mom is embarrassed because he's having a temper tantrum in the aisle. And so what does she do? In order to stop him from screaming and yelling, she buys it for him. And he said, so what you are teaching him is that is an effective way to get what he wants. And he said it starts with the toddler that always gets a yes, and then it just progresses all the way through their, elementary school, middle school, high school. And he says, I'm urging you to take a strong parental stance with your children because they depend on you to help them learn to manage their desires so that someday they can do it effectively for themselves. And so when I find teenagers who can't say no to themselves when it comes to their emotions and their hormones, many times it's because they've never had to say no to themselves. And so they're going to always have to say no to themselves about something. And one of the things that I tell the students in the classroom when we're talking about sex is I say one of the biggest benefits of you not having sex while you're a teenager is that you're developing a muscle, discipline, and self-control. Because the same discipline and self-control that it takes for you not to have sex as a teenager is the same discipline and self-control that it's going to take for you not to be faithful inside of a marriage when you're older. And so position it in a way of this is going to benefit you in the long game instead of the short game of just experiencing temporary pleasure, which is not going to benefit them long term. So another thing that he said, he says, no is not the destination. No is the road to yes. And I absolutely love that. He says, we say no to our kids to build character. It's a long-term investment. The reward doesn't come when we are enforcing a consequence. When we tell our teens they need to take the challenging courses. When we tell a 4-year-old that they can't have that candy before dinner. When we tell a 12-year-old that he can't play video games or watch TV, that he can only watch TV or play video games 10 hours a week. Or when we say the other no's that must be said. The reward does come, however. The reward for saying no comes when our kids are the adults who know when to say no and when to say yes to themselves, who can delay gratification in order to accomplish greater achievements. No is not the goal. No is the road to yes. I absolutely love that. And I just think you will be much more successful in helping your children be successful and not make poor choices, not even just about sex, even though that's what I talk about mostly, but about other at-risk behaviors, drinking, drugs, any of those things. If you can position it in, this is how it's going to help you later by you saying no right now. And let me read you a couple of letters that I have from kids. Well, actually, in the book that I wrote, that's one of the things that I cover in my book, The Truth About Sex for Teen Guys, real stories from teen guys like you. And so I talk about having discipline and self-control as one of the reasons why, it's going to benefit them to not have sex. So let me read you what this guy says. This guy says, high school guy. He says, I'm a virgin. I expect the best for myself, and I believe the self-control that I have upheld with regards to athletics and academics spills over to other parts of my life. When other people at my age give in to sex, I see physical and emotional pain. When I think about giving in to sex, I only see heartbreak, disappointment, and one more unneeded weight on my shoulders. I learned that no matter how tempting and life-changing sex can be, a real man knows how to have self-control. Don't you just love that? Like, I love it. I'm telling you, these letters that I get from girls and guys, but especially guys, when I talk about the benefit of having self-control, because I think they have more pressure on them oftentimes in the culture because they've been told that sex will make you a man. And so in this book, what I do is it's written in 2 sections. The first one is the 10 best reasons why high school guys or teenage guys have told me that they choose not to have sex. And then the second section is the 10 worst reasons why teen guys have told me that they've had sex. And I'll just read you a couple of the reasons. Some of the reasons why they choose not to have sex is because they know their value. They want to be protectors and not predators, to have discipline and self-control, to be role models for younger siblings, to protect their future children, to protect their future spouse, to avoid negative consequences because they have dreams and goals and because they're proud of who they are and their decisions. And then I talk about the 10 worst reasons why, and for each one of these, I have letters from high school guys. I think they're mostly high school, not middle school, mostly high school. And then at the end of each chapter, I have 5 self-reflection questions that that they can like internalize what they just read. So, some of the 10 worst reasons why guys have told me they had sex: they let their hormones control them, to relieve stress, their friends have sex and they feel pressure to fit in, to brag to their friends, they face pressure from their fathers and other adult men. You wouldn't believe how many teenage boys tell me that the adult men in their life were saying things to them like, "Are you scared? What's wrong with you? You ain't got none yet?" I'm like, to satisfy curiosity because they think it'll make them a man, because they were offered sex and they didn't want to seem lame, just to get physical pleasure, and because they're embarrassed about being a virgin. So let me see if I can find some of the questions. One of the things I talk about is they know their value, and I talk to them about the fact that we have a double standard where sometimes guys are encouraged to have sex and girls are told not to because they say you need to know your worth, you need to know your value. And so one of the questions is, when you have children, do you plan to have the same expectations for your son and your daughter about their sexual decisions? If not, why? Why do you think parents sometimes don't teach boys about their value the same way they teach girls? What differences do you think it would make in our culture if we taught guys that they have value? But anyway, so this is a great example. I also have in my Boys to Men Masterclass on my academy, I have a session where we talk a lot about discipline and self-control as well. But this book I highly recommend, by David Walsh, Know Why Kids of All Ages Need to Hear It and Ways Parents Can Say It. And then let me read you a couple of more letters that guys, I don't know if these are guys. Yeah, I think these are guys. This one guy says, during your presentation, you talked about how you can play now and pay later, or pay now and play later. This made me think, if I just discipline myself now, I won't have to live life in regret when I'm older. The next one says, thank you for coming to our class. The topic helped me understand that we as teens need to focus and discipline ourselves first so we can have a greater impact on our lives. If we don't take these measures now, in the future, all the things you didn't want to happen could happen. We make our own decisions, so we must take ownership of our actions, good or bad. I am so encouraged when I read the letters from the students to understand how they really, really resonated with the examples and the reasons why I tell them that it's not a good idea to have sex. But anyway, I said I wasn't going to be on here long. I just want to encourage you, no matter how old or young your kids are, understand that discipline is the key to success. And the sooner you can teach your kids the importance of having discipline and self-control, the better. And if they learn it in one area, it spills over in every other area. And the area that will be the most difficult is their hormones, because that's natural. Like, there's no other at-risk behavior that we try to talk teenagers out of. Is there anything natural in their body that makes them want to do it other than sex? There's nothing natural in their body that makes them want to drink alcohol or do drugs. Like, sex, that's natural with their hormones. We're asking them to fight against themselves. But when I find a teenager that can control their hormones, I find a teenager that the sky is the limit as far as whatever else they can do, because they've mastered the most difficult area in their lives to master, and that's themselves. So I just wanted to hop on here tonight to give you that little tidbit. I often get messages from parents saying, you know, how are you so effective at getting these kids to stop having sex or not have sex, or what can I do to help my kid? So if you're watching this on the replay, hit replay, your city, state, or country, just so I can see where you're joining from. The other thing is, I posted this the other day, and I didn't get a lot of response. So I'm wondering, let me mention it again now. If there's any interest in me doing a virtual workshop for moms of teen girls, and the title of the workshop is 7 Secrets Your Teen Daughter Will Never Tell You. And I just get so many letters from teen girls who tell me they're struggling with things, but they don't want their parents to know. So let me read you a few excerpts. This girl says, I don't want to go to my mother because I'm afraid she'll hate me forever if I ever confess to her about this. This next girl says, it's getting harder and harder to hide what I'm doing from my parents. I'm afraid of what they will think about me once they find out. This next girl says, I refuse to tell my mom. I never want her to find out. This last girl says, I have been through a lot and I just don't know how to tell my mom. And so there are 7 things that I hear on a regular basis that teen girls are struggling with, and they're carrying the burden and the weight on their shoulders. They're basically suffering in silence because they don't want to tell their parents. So if there is any interest in me doing a virtual workshop, it'd probably be like 90 minutes and $25, maybe the cost of it. Let me know in the comments if that's something you would be interested in having me do, to share some of the things that I'm learning from girls, so that they don't have to carry these burdens and struggles on their own. Make sure you check out my resources on my website, JackieBruton.com, and my online academy, JackieBacademy.com. So if anybody wrote any comments, I can't see them on here. I will answer them. After the live is over. But thank you for joining me, and make sure you drop down below where you're joining from. Bye-bye.